Welcome everyone to the CEO AMA. This is what you make of it, and Alexander is determined to make something of it. Alexander, take it away.
And Alexander, I don't think you're on. I'll vocalize. So yes, I mentioned a sample question about ski season. And so Alex asks, have you been getting on the mountains much lately? Feel free to post some pics in the Dev Ski Ot Slack channel.
Thanks for planting that, Christy, and thanks for moving with that, Alexander. So last weekend, Karen and I went to Sugar Bowl. Sugar Bowl is a ski resort in Tahoe. It's really nice, but there was no new snow and it was extremely windy. So there was a wind hold. So we only got there in the afternoon. This is us eating some gyros. There was a band playing in the background, which you can't see, but believe me, there was a band playing. It was super, super sunny, and we try to contribute with our outfits. But it was also really busy because all the lifts got closed because of wind, too high winds. So ended up bunching people together. So we went back home, and you can see here on Donner Lake, there's some white tops on that, and that's a pretty kind of shielded lake. So it's pretty windy when that happens. Also, at the supermarket, everything is software these days. They couldn't accept credit cards, and it led to all the self-checkout closing, which was a bit of a thing. So yeah, software is everywhere. Even the supermarket has their uptime and downtime. But we made it, and one of the people we were staying with built a really nice fire. So, and a good ski weekend without a lot of skiing.
Great, thank you. I had the next question stemmed because I just started working with you and Stella on the shadow program this week. So I was wondering, do you have recommendations for encouraging participation in the program? And really, I want to focus on getting folks signed up, a few months out. We have great participation, but a lot of it is, just within a month or a few weeks of an opening.
Yeah.
And then I also noted too, is the referral program. Do you think the AMA was helpful? Should we be tracking any metrics?
I think it's a really unique opportunity. And I wonder why why there's not more demand. I would have loved to do something like this in my career. We hear it's really beneficial, so I wonder what the gist is. What we can do is we can plan a call with some of the shadows and theme it CEO Shadow the Dirt, and not invite me, not record the call, not take any notes, and encourage everyone to be frank about the pluses and the minuses. We can also pretend that the alumni section of that page is the certification page. These are certified CEO shadows, so now you can put it on your resume, because as some people said, it's kind of like a mini MBA. I've had people say, look, I learned more here than the part-time MBA I did for 4 years. I learned more in these 2 weeks. And I study management science. I can see where that's coming from.
And I will say the feedback we always have from the shadows is, I loved it. I would love to do it again. That's, the shadow channel is really active. So I like the idea of that call, but I also think, I want to spread the word on that feedback and the energized comments we hear from folks who complete the program.
Can I make a suggestion or just an observation, I guess? There's a set of eligibility criteria for the program that requires people be at a certain level in the organization, or have these different other considerations that restricts certain other team members who don't meet that criteria from applying until the last minute. So that's one thing that we could review, is kind of making the criteria a bit broader for people to apply early, and that might allow us to fill out the calendar farther in advance and have fewer of the last minute rotations.
Yeah, I had asked John a question similar to that lower down, which is we should have the answer to these questions, but I don't think we necessarily do. Like, of the criteria that exist today, what percentage of team members are eligible given that criteria? And then of those eligible, what percent have already participated once? I think is something to figure out. Like the criteria is great because we didn't want to, we want to encourage the things the criteria encourage are great. But if we understood that percentage, it might help us understand, should we shift that criteria?
That's a good, yeah, Brendan, that's a great thought about the who meets that criteria.
I'll also just say, and I put this later down with Christie's follow-up, like as an alumni, I'd love to participate again. I agree. It would be pretty hard for me to do today because it's remote and I'm on the East Coast, which wouldn't be that big a deal. Like I would shift my time, but the kids make it really hard because like prime time West Coast meetings in the afternoon is kid bedtime on the East Coast. And so that makes it really tough for me to participate again currently. For what it's worth, that's one data point.
Cool. Yeah, basically the only criteria now is like the only people who don't meet these things are individual contributors without any of these 5. So basically the next step would be opening it up to just plain everyone in GitLab, which might be what we need to do, Christy.
Okay. And
for at least 1 month, recommended more than 3 months. We never ran into that. That's a thing we thought of, like, oh, it's going to be really, if they're still, I don't know, figuring out one password and stuff like that, they're going to have a stressful time. But that's an assumption. So let's remove that one and just see what happens. So for sure, let's remove the need to be at GitLab for some time criteria.
Okay.
And then either we add more considerations or we just make everyone eligible.
I'll take those actions as more. Okay, great. I'll take those notes. Christy, do you want to verbalize your point?
Sure. I was just wondering if, because of the pandemic and the inability to travel, if maybe people wanted to wait until this could be in person in San Francisco again, or maybe that was limiting participation, or given what Brendan said, issue with time zones.
Could be. By the way, I wouldn't wait. Like you're getting 90% plus of the knowledge you would get if we switch back to in person. In fact, you might have fewer meetings if we switch back to in person. So you might actually be getting more.
Yeah, I'll modify my previous comments to say Sid is 100% correct on that, because even when you're in person with him, you spend a lot of time on Zoom in his front room, right? When I was in person with him. And so the only thing limiting me wanting to go back is the time zone problem, not the like, oh, I want to go to San Francisco. It just, that makes it easier as a parent to be like, I'm on a work trip, not I have to be on meetings when kids are screaming and trying to get baths.
And actually, I don't think I'm going to go back to like having the shadows in my living room. I think that was fun, but also a source of a little source of stress for me. So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I like it as a shadow program. So I think that's a good feedback. Sid, do you want me to look and see if there's anything that references going back to in person and maybe edit that?
Yeah, we can make that clear that we're not going back to in person.
Okay.
I think that maybe we allow people to travel to San Francisco because that would make for, we could do a dinner or something like that. And some people just time zone wise, it's just, it's much better to be in the right time zone. But we'll see about that. But they're not going to be in my house.
Great. Victor, will you vocalize your point?
Sure. As somebody who would like to join the CEO Shadow program, but actually cannot because we don't travel, it's primarily the time zone. My plan was to go to the sales kickoff as I had the chance, and I wanted to stay in the US. And one of the plans was to move as close to San Francisco as I can, as I'm flying anyway to the US. Like, why not to do that as well, to be in the same time zone. So that's I would say that the primary reason. If we can have, I totally understand what you said, Sid, and about not having anybody, like not going back to that practice. If there would be the chance of having a dinner, that would be like awesome. So like, I don't need a swag. It won't be motivating. I have plenty of swags. More that personal contact with you is what is, I think, way more motivating, at least for me. I can't speak of all the others who can't join at this time, but it's primarily time zone why me and I guess others from outside of the US are away from this program.
That makes sense. I never declined a coffee meeting in my time at GitLab. So if you just want some personal time, there's a way easier way to do that than flying all the way to San Francisco.
Yeah, I got this proposal yesterday from Anoop that I should just schedule a coffee chat with you, and I wanted to do it today. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Looking forward to it.
Great, and it looks like Janice, you had a similar comment on time zones. So thanks for noting this. Sam, do you want to verbalize your point?
I'm just curious if we've ever thought of opening up the program and splitting it mornings and afternoons so that it's more open to people that have time zone commitments, depending on their area or their family.
Oh, that's an interesting suggestion.
All right, great. Yeah, that's something we can think about too. Darva?
Yes, I was really interested in seeing the participation rates by department or sub-department, because if you're in the middle of engineering allocations or customer escalations or various things like that, you're going to prioritize your work over your own personal development. And I also think in terms of managers, if you're hiring a lot and you have a lot of management responsibilities going on, especially towards the end of the year, you're also going to prioritize your work. So if it looks like some sub-departments or departments are not really having the opportunities, maybe we could look at how we can remediate that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Darva. I can see you being really busy. What I think, if you take your question literally and you go by department, I think sales people on quotas have less participation, which makes sense, right? Your compensation is tied to what you half of your comp is tied to what you produce, and those 2 weeks come at the expense of that. So we've looked into, okay, are we going to compensate for that? But that's a bit of a can of worms. So we ended up not doing that. But I think that would be the department that is most underrepresented in participating.
Bronwyn, point E.
I think we've kind of covered it a few times, but this is my own self holding me back from applying, probably from a last minute open availability, since I'm not high enough in the organization to meet the initial qualifications. But the remote is a factor. I think I just need to branch out and reach out to some of the former shadows and ask of their experience. So.
Okay, and let's make an exception right now on this call. You're eligible because we're struggling to fill it. And Christy, maybe put an e-group to look at that eligibility. We could add non-male as a criteria, and we can just scrap all the eligibility requirements.
Okay, I'll add that agenda item. Christina?
Oh yeah, I just put that in the chat, but I was gonna say I waited for almost a year because I really wanted to go to San Francisco, but I obviously we're not gonna be, you know, in Sid's house anymore, but regardless, it's still very worth it. And you can do it again in a year or 2 years if we open it back up. So don't wait. You still get a great experience.
Great, thanks, everybody. I think, so I'll take an action, start Mars, I'll chat, Sid, I'll post this in the CEO channel so everyone can contribute once it's there.
Cool. And I saw Brandon post something in the chat. I think it's a bit like Y Combinator. When I looked at Y Combinator beforehand, everyone was like, it's such an awesome program. And like, I didn't understand, like, okay, how can it be so great? It's just some people hanging out and having dinner every now and then. And then you go through it and then you become a fan yourself, where you're also like that. Like, I have a hard time explaining it, but it was really good. So I think it would help to put a section at the bottom of the page that's called the dirt. And it says, look, if you work at GitLab and you want the dirt on this, go to the CEO Shadow Alumni Slack channel, look at who's active, or look at the page who's recently done it and just DM them and ask them how it really was.
I can make that MR.
Thanks, Brandon.
Great, thank you. Number 3, Miles?
Yeah, on a slightly different note, I was just wondering what kind of music you like, if you have a favorite artist, stuff like that.
Thanks. I'm 42 years old, hence I like Radiohead. This is making it pretty honest because this is my Spotify. So for work, I like kind of melodic house or deep house or something without too many words in it. EDM hits. We went to Bottle Rock this year, which was super fun. So I kind of get to relive that a little bit. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, it's something I play. You saw my ski outfit. I also ski a monoboard, and sometimes I bring a speaker and I blast a little bit of that to make the 80s look complete. And then I'm a really beginner DJ in the sense that with all the technology, I can mix 2 songs together. My favorite part is teaching other people the same skills I have. It takes about 2 minutes, so that's really fun.
Seems like a future feature in maybe at the end of AMA, CEO AMA, teach everyone how to be a DJ in 2 minutes.
We can totally do that. I probably need. It would be more fun if someone holds a camera so they can see what I'm doing. But I do have a deck now at home, so we can do that.
Cool. Thanks.
Christy.
Yeah, another fun question, hopefully, like Miles. I was wondering if you believe in the existence of aliens.
Phew. I'm going to take this way too serious. There's I look, whether there's aliens, other life forms in the universe, it's kind of hard to guess. That's what all the literature is telling us. If you look at the data we have on kind of, are we being simulated? It's more likely than not. I'll paste the link here. So other life forms, likely, probably most likely outside of our simulation. Then, like, are the alien sightings real? I was like, oh, that's an easy one. Like, they're not. Like, if they're smart enough to come all the way here, why would they be caught? But the sightings that kind of the Pentagon released pretty recently, there's in an official capacity, the people in charge are taking those very seriously. And there's been I've known of people I really respect who are like at conferences, and these government people are really asking around, and they're not trying to hide it. Like there is something, and they want to understand too. So that's pretty weird. I can't explain that. So now I went from that's an easy one to I'm confused.
Thanks. I think I have the next question. We're really leaning into the anything on this AMA, but I'm participating in the Women at GitLab mentorship program, which is kicking off. And I was wondering if you have any advice for making the most of a program like this, and if you have any stories to share from some of your most meaningful mentorship experiences, either as a mentor or a mentee.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's a very good and appropriate question. But everyone, it's fine to ask inappropriate questions. It's ask me everything, not answer anything. So I'll just say I won't answer that and go to the next question if I think it's not a good fit. Mentor wise, like the most useful thing I have ever gotten was from John Hamm when our quarter was looking 30% down. It was quite some years ago. And I was like a deer in the headlights, like, oh my goodness, I messed up. Everyone's going to be angry. And John said, look, the board doesn't really, they understand that startups are up and down. They just want you to understand what's going on and what you're going to do about it. I'm like, oh, and it sounds so obvious in hindsight, but I wasn't thinking that. So for 2 weeks, I really educated myself on what was really going on and learned a ton. And had a big plan. And the board meeting, I was a 30-minute presentation of everything that was wrong and everything we're going to do about it. And they were like, well, that's great. And the only thing they said, there was a long silence. And then Philly said, Sid, don't do any crazy things, as in don't accept deals on bad terms just to make your revenue numbers. So that was the most useful. And I think for a mentor relationship to be really good, you have to share the real problems you're struggling with. Otherwise, the mentor can't help. That might sound obvious as well, but you'd be surprised.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Blair, you say, can I pretend? What is that?
That is the actor John Hamm.
Yeah.
Giving you sage CEO advice.
Great.
Brendan clarified that mentor of yours wasn't the actor.
Yep, not the actor.
Marshall, number 6.
Hey, so I was reading through the collaboration value in the handbook again this morning and didn't see any explicit mention of external collaboration. I was wondering if what your thoughts are on whether we should put more emphasis on that. And I provided some examples here, like perhaps tracking our engineering MR rate on GitHub projects as well as GitLab projects, participating in open standards bodies, and either contributing projects to the CNCF or contributing to CNCF funded projects more directly.
That's great. I can see that, how external collaboration is a part of collaboration. So if there's a small tweak where we don't like add 1,600 words, but just add a few words about that, I'm open to reviewing that. We are passionate about open source, and we encourage to kind of contribute to open source where appropriate. Like if we fix something somewhere, please do try to commit it upstream, send it upstream. I don't think we have a company goal to like open source as many projects as possible under their CNCF standard body or something like that. I do think Eric Johnson is on the board of, I think, the Linux Foundation or the CNCF.
He is on the board of Linux Foundation.
Yeah. So we do participate in that way. I wouldn't drive it as a company metric per se. I would really like to drive the metric getting 1,000 contributors a month on GitLab. So, but that will require a collaboration with externals, and that's not easy. And people building beautiful things on top of GitLab. Was the MathWorks, I think, thing yesterday. This article, which is really cool. So external collaboration, super important. Metric-wise, I'm super passionate about the 1,000 contributors by November 2024 goal.
Great, and we are at time. Thanks, everybody. This was a really fun conversation.
Thanks.